big and all the same types of stuff, but then they also have like telescopes and other things that a normal, electronics store wouldn't have. But it's usually like this year's model toward the end of it when it's about to be replaced by next year's model at a super discount.
Oh yeah.
And so I got a camera like that. I don't know if it's that particular camera, but a nice HD camera with nice ins and outs and all sorts of features, with a bag and a bunch of lenses and stuff for like less than $200. It's like $180 or something.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll take that.
Right.
That's like a $400 camera. So.
Not bad.
But I bought it and I was like, I have it now. Put it to the side and go back to life. And I was like, if I need it, it's right there. I haven't been using it like I should.
And you just forget about it.
Mm-hmm. Always.
There's some folks.
Hello.
All right.
Come on up.
You got some more following us.
Join the party.
Told someone down that you were here. And they're like, oh.
My students are all like, no fair, you gotta go to these things. Yeah, I'm an adult. I have a car.
We were given just a few minutes for you guys to show up. I think did they make an announcement? Is that what happened?
Been like texting back and forth.
It's all good. Yeah, but we can get this thing going.
Alrighty. Well, hi everyone. This is Mike McFarland. He is he's one of the ADR directors over at Funimation and has directed and starred in a bazillion different projects over there, such as Jean Kirstein in Attack on Titan, Gene Havoc in the Full Metal Alchemist series, Master Roshi in Dragon Ball Z, has directed all three of those titles that I just named, and you directed episodes in Tokyo Ghoul, things I can't think of right now because I don't have my notes up.
He's got the One Piece shirt on.
One Piece,
the
yes.
Funimation dev of One Piece. Some Dragon Ball back in the day, Mushishi, the whole set of films like Summer Wars and Wolf Children, stuff like that. The Evangelion rebuild movies, Blood Blockade, Battlefront, a lot of stuff.
You recently just did Boy and the Beast, right?
Yeah, Boy and the Beast. The movies I worked on this year were The Boy and the Beast and The Empire of Corpses, and those were both really fun titles.
Okay.
So yeah, and then lots of video game stuff too. Of note this year, Street Fighter V. I'm Charlie and Ash in that.
Really?
And then a few other things and stuff. But yeah. So these things, I don't have like a preset thing that I talk about. I'd rather talk about what you guys want to talk about. So we can Q&A stuff as much as possible. I might go off on a long diatribe based on whatever your question is and give you a much longer answer than what you could have ever hoped for. But it does give us something to talk about. So yeah, for the next 45-ish minutes or so, whatever you guys want to chat about, I'll be happy to discuss it with you. Any things about acting, or yes, sir?
How did you get started in voice acting?
In voice acting, I started training as an actor in some capacity or another when I was in elementary school, and kind of put it to the wayside a little bit because I became so interested in music.
Okay.
But somewhere in like late high school or college, I was bitten by the acting bug again and started doing both. Before I got out of college, I was already auditioning for stuff through an agent. So I had taken voice and diction and improvisation and things like that. And in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, unless you really specify otherwise, if you're signed with an agent, then they just put you on anything that talent could do that would pay money. So like, I've done modeling gigs, I've done industrial gigs, I've done commercial work, I've done feature films and television, it's just like whatever.
Okay.
So I had a few voiceover auditions and I booked them here and there, and then there was a gig, an ongoing gig at a radio station where they would have me do, their drops, or you're listening to blah, 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 or be like fake call-ins on their morning show, afternoon show, whatever. Like if they wanted a setup of a comedic bit of some knucklehead calling in with some crazy opinion, then I would be the knucklehead. In 1997-ish, I had an audition with Funimation, and that was the first type of audition for that type of work that I had had. And they heard a few hundred people, and I was one of about 12 to 15 that was picked out to work on a Dragon Ball title. It was a Dragon Ball movie called Sleeping Princess and the Devil's. It's either Hand or Castle. I always forget what it's called.
Castle, I think it's Castle.
Thank you. I'll forget it next time I talk about it too, but right now I know. It's the Castle. And I was cast as Master Roshi in that and a couple of other things. And from there, it's just spurned off into lots of other work. So the other Funimation titles that I've worked on, and then people in video game, that sort of setup would say, hey, would you read for this? I like your work on that. And that's just spurned off into lots of other things, lots of other places. I've worked in Houston and New York and Los Angeles and all over, and still do stuff for my agent. It's just spurned out from there. And I still do whatever I can. I still do theater gigs. I still do on-camera work. I still do voiceover commercial stuff. It's whatevs.
All right.
So what kind of commercial that you've done work in that we would know?
I'm not sure, because I'm not sure what all plays nationally.
Oh,
Sometimes
okay.
when you book something where it says like it's regional or national or whatever, even if it's national, it may not be everywhere.
Yeah.
I've done spots for the Texas Rangers, which I'm sure don't show here.
I probably saw it.
What's up?
I probably saw it.
You probably
when I
saw
lived
it?
in Texas.
It was, let's see, the Texas Ranger spot I did was probably 8-ish, 10-ish years ago. And it was a security guard that heard fireworks going off inside the stadium, and he ran inside and there was guys practicing. And their cracking ball to the bat was causing fireworks. So that was one of the on-camera ones that I did. I was the spokesperson for Newcastle for a little while. That's some nice beer. Texas lottery spots, which don't play here either, you know. Budweiser was on camera for one of their commercials, I think. Either Budweiser or Coors Light. It's been so long I forget which beer it was. Some air conditioning places, some various chains and stuff. I can't remember. Do they have Taco John here?
Yep.
So that's another one. I did a Taco John's commercial, and Taco John's has a monkey wearing a sombrero. That's their mascot. And I did not get to see the monkey, but the monkey was in the commercial with me, so I felt like I got gypped out of the video, hanging out with the monkey.
Aw.
Yeah. Yeah, just random stuff like that.
So those are all on camera?
Those are all on camera. The Newcastle one was voiceover. And then I've been in various films or television shows of varying length and or budget. I was in Office Space, the Mike Judge movie, but you'll never see me. I was in Any Given Sunday, the Oliver Stone movie, but you'll never see me. I was in a couple of made-for-television things. I was in a television show 2 or 3 years ago, one of those crime reenactment shows on was it Investigative Discovery Network, the IV network, as a serial killer. Yeah, just random stuff here and there. Not like I was on CSI or whatever, like, you know, that just doesn't happen a whole lot in the Dallas area. Luckily, there are some folks in the Dallas area that get regional work or regional auditions for really cool shows like The Walking Dead and stuff like that. One of my buddies, or a few of my buddies, Brina Palencia, actually the voice actor for Chopper, who's on your shirt there, she was in an episode of The Walking Dead. And then my friend Jason Douglas is currently still on The Walking Dead. He's one of the, if you watch the show, he's one of the Alexandria people that is helping out the main crew, and he hasn't died yet, so yay him.
All right.
So he plays a character named Tobin.
Okay.
So yeah, there are more and more opportunities popping up even for folks living in the Dallas area. So that's really cool.
All right.
Yes?
What's the process of coming up with a voice like? Do you get to do that yourself, or does somebody dictate it to you?
It's a combination of both. It depends on the job. So like if there's an anime audition, they're going to dub something into English. Typically what happens is there'll either be a picture, 2 or 3 pictures of the character, this is what they're like, so you can kind of see how old they are, what the animation is like as far as like, do I need to have a cartoony type voice, Or do I need to have a really realistic type voice? You know, is it like a One Piece, very broad show, or is it like Ghost in the Shell or something where you're just using normal people sounding voices and you just add the melodrama to, you know, fit with what's going on? In some instances, like recently I auditioned for something where they full on sent me a clip of like, here's the clip of the character doing a scene in Japanese in the original production. So I'm like, oh, okay, I can hear the voice too, I can hear everything. They'll give you a little description, like this character does this, it's the father of this character, or it's the sidekick of this character, or it's the lead and he's 16 and blah, blah, blah. It gives you all that information. And then some lines of dialogue. Usually with the lines of dialogue, there's some context, like he's talking to his mother, or this is just before they go into battle and they're hiding around the corner, so it's very stealthy. Like they'll give you some sort of context as far as what's going on. And it is up to me, based on all of those descriptions, to figure out what I want to do with my voice, to have the best audition that I can. If the guy is younger than me, how do I make my voice sound a little bit younger? If it's a monster, how far do I want to take that where there's some sort of growly, monstrous quality to my voice, but where's the cutoff where you can't understand what I'm saying anymore? That's if I'm just picking the voice out myself. Normally, if I go in an audition like that, I'll either get booked and be like, hey, just what you did is great, or hey, we really liked what you did, can you do this and put this accent on top of it, or something, and then I just make the minor adjustment. So then we meet in the middle with the actors, with the directors and producers, and kind of decide from there. But the initial inception of it is usually just whatever I come up with, and if they want to adjust it, then we do.
How familiar do you get with the source material before recording voice work?
If I'm directing and it's a normal recording process, then I watch it in its original language 2 or 3 times all the way through from beginning to end. And then if it's something where there's a lot of tie-in material, I will try to research that as well. Like if it's a standalone movie, like the whole set of films that I've worked on, and it doesn't necessarily have like, this ties in with Greek mythology, or this ties in with a pop culture event that happened in Japan 20 years ago. If there isn't anything like that going on, I just watch the movie, and I just research how, like, I may research the breakdown of what all the characters are, and someone might provide, either the studio or whoever might provide some information like, this person is this, they're related to this person, they have an affinity for this person, they don't get along with these people, that sort of information. If it's something long and ongoing, like One Piece, I'll watch as much as I can. Well, when I started working on the dub for One Piece, I watched about 20 to 30 episodes in Japanese, and then watched a little bit of the previous dub, because Toei, the licensor, said what we'd like is a combination of what the Seiyu, the Japanese voice actor, sounds like, but also not night and day difference from what was done before in English, so that there can be a smoother transition to what you guys are doing. I mostly went with what I thought the English equivalent of the Seiyus would be, while honoring a little bit of what was done before, like, oh, okay, it's a higher voice, or it's a scratchy voice or something. Let's keep that. For what Funimation is currently doing for what's called broadcast dubs, where you pay a subscription fee, and on the Funimation.com website, you can sign in with whatever login they give you if you pay your fee, and you can just stream anime all day long. Those dubs, the material that you're working with is only a couple of weeks old, and there's not a lot of research that you can do. If it's based off of a manga, you can at least read that, check that out. There's no guarantee that the animation team and the producers are going to do it just like the manga. So, you could study something that ends up being not very helpful to you because they've decided to, like, we're going to throw in 5 new anime-only characters, and this person's personality is going to be different. Like, they just decide to do it different. If it's original anime based off of no manga, then you don't have anything. You can work back and forth with the production company and say, hey, this is Mike, I work with Funimation, I'm doing the English dub of your show. Can you give me any help as far as, do you have an outline of season 1? Can you give me character arcs? If the antagonist is secret and mixed in with them, can you let me know who that is? Like any information will be helpful. And you don't always get that back. So once again, I can just base it off of what it is that I hear and see in episode 1, in episode 2, things like that. And just make the best decisions that I can and move forward. Luckily for stuff like that, once it is streaming, make it through a season, if we find out anything, like, oh, this ends up being this person, or oh, the big reveal is this, and so the dub that you did, this part is not true anymore because you interpreted the translation wrong. We fix all that stuff before it goes to the Blu-ray, DVD, or iTunes purchase hard copies of it, so that by the time that it is available for individual purchase, it's corrected. So it's just in the instance of the streaming or whatever, that's the best we can do with what little information we have at the time.
Okay.
That one is loaded. How you doing, sir?
Fine, how are you? Sorry.
Great. Oh, no worries, man. We're still talking.
If you go like a few days or like weeks without doing a character, is it hard to get back into?
Not really. Not for me anyway. What most studios do is keep what's called a reference file. So if I'm going in to record and it was a character maybe that I've only done once or twice, and then production, stops, or my character isn't in the show for several weeks and I come back, they just play me the last couple of things that I did. So I'm like, oh, okay, it sits in this part of my voice. I use this percentage of raspiness. For the ensemble, I shouldn't get any higher or any lower than this within my character range to best serve the group of other actors that are working there, where we don't, like, if we're both off screen saying something, no one is confused as to which character is talking. So that sort of thing. But if it's something like Master Roshi, I don't get a reference because I've been doing it for 19 years. And like I can just go in and do that. So even if it goes like a year or two and there's nothing to record, I still know what it sounds like. So yeah.
Do you have any tips on how to get started in voice acting for someone?
Sure, man. The thing that I suggest that most people, it's the step that they want to skip, and that is the study acting. So, take theater courses, take improvisation, take voice and diction, take all of those things, and don't stop doing that. I myself have been acting professionally for, I don't know, a quarter of a century, 25-ish years. I take training ongoing. I have a weekly workshop that I attend for scene study and all sorts of stuff, and I still train every week. I'll take a workshop if something comes into town where I can learn new things, or take a refresher course on something that I took a workshop on 10 years ago. So study, audition for theater, audition for whatever you can. Acting is acting. Once you have that mindset down, you can probably take specific voice acting courses where they're like, here are all the skills that you've acquired from learning how to act. Now we're going to show you how to make the microphone work for you, where you can convey those emotions and convey your voice with this electronic device that captures everything, and learn how to work with it rather than be afraid of it or work against it, or have it be any sort of awkward thing that would take away from your performance. The landscape is in such a way now where you could probably find lots of opportunities online without having to have any sort of representation. There are web series, there are just local businesses that don't know how to, we want to make a commercial. Where do we even start? We've never made this sort of thing. They may contact someone like Voice 123 or Voice Bank or any of these online services and put a notice up, say, hey, we want to do this.
Voices.com.
Voices.com is another one. and you could submit your stuff that way. It's nice to have some sort of, you know, decent home set up. And if you don't, then it's nice to know places around town that have professional studios, and you're like, hey, I need like 15 minutes to track something. What are your rates? Where you would have to pay for professional recording of your own audition, which you may not book or ever get, but you're at least going to turn in, you know, some good files. At some point, if you want to continue doing that sort of thing, it'd be nice to record some sort of demo so that people will have an idea of what your voice sounds like. Most professional studios, that's one of the services that they offer. Like, you go in, like, hey, I'd like to record a commercial demo, and there are tons and tons of ways of doing that, or I'd like to do a character demo for video games and animation. They might suggest that you go out and find your own copy, or write your own copy, things of that nature. It might be that, like, for an additional fee or whatever, like, I don't want to do that. Can you just, you know, I'll work with you a little bit, listen to my voice, and you write everything for me, and I will pay you for that, because all I want to do is go in and do this and leave. You know, that sort of thing. But there's a bunch of different setups that you could do for that sort of thing. What you want to do, though, is put your best foot forward on your audition, your demo. Whatever's closest to your voice is what you should start out with.
All right.
You know, if you're like, I can do this, and I can do that, I can do this freaky voice, and I can do this imitation, I can do whatever, that should be later.
Okay.
You know, what people are going to most hire you for is like the voice that that I'm using right now, or that you're using right now.
All right.
That's what's going to come in the most handy. And then, you know, depending on what type of demo it is, will dictate everything else that you do. If it's a commercial demo, it's going to be like various things that you could do with your voice within that context. Like, you know, excited, loud, in your face, you know, car dealership spot. Like, get down here now, or whatever. Or, you know, a jewelry spot where everything is smooth. Or, I'm the smarmy electronics guy who knows everything. Like, you know, you're going to do some sort of variation in the delivery of what you do based on everything that you've seen before. It's not copying if you're copying style, because it's still going to sound like you. You just have to recognize what the marketplace is like. So, like, you know, if you have this type of spot, you have that type of spot, that delivery is what they're looking for, but they want a different voice on it. You know, that sort of thing. Yes?
Do they have an online magazine for you voice actors or things like that?
What you mean?
Well, I mean, don't artists have services that are advertised with, or illustrators advertise with certain people, or have their own publications that are geared towards them?
Similar, something similar to that was, I think we may have been talking about it just before you walked in. There's places like Voice Bank, Voices.com.
123, Voices.com.
Yeah, that's places where you can put up your demo, and even without representation. And if some local business or whatever, like, I just need, like, you know, male voice, 20s, 30s, playful sounding, serious sounding, I need 50s voice, 50s, 60s voice, you know, weathered and wise sounding or whatever. All of these sorts of things, if your voice fits within that platform, then there's going to be, like, you know, here are the list of everyone whose voice falls into that category. And they're going to listen to that person, and that person, and that person, and that person, and pick out something and contact you. So, you know, that may be the sort of thing that would tie in with what you're saying. But there's not really one way to do it. You know, there's people who've come in from radio and suddenly do acting work, but the experience they have on the microphone has helped them a lot. There are people who, you know, happen to work in the same office building as where all the recording's taking place. And, you know, it might get down to a deadline wire where, like, we just need one more guy to go, quick, let's get out of here, and everyone's gone home for the day. Can you do this for me? You know, there's all sorts of things where at least you can get your foot in the door in some capacity. But yeah, the acting, the training, the looking for work, and the making the demo at some point after you've done all of that training and stuff would be, that's a pretty universal way to approach it.
Oh.
So I'm 23,
Mm-hmm.
and every day when I came home from school, I'd watch Dragon Ball Z. And that's what all my friends would do after school. We all bought the action figures, we all bought the games.
Yay, good on you.
Find all that stuff
Mhm.
in stores across the U.S. Did it surprise you how much of a cultural phenomenon that became? Because I feel like that was my generation's first exposure to a lot of non-American animation in that style.
I don't know, like, I'm lucky in that, I was involved with that. So from inside out, it was, not trying to reduce it to anything, but it was just one of the many things that I auditioned for. So I'm like, cool, I go in and I record that or whatever. I think it was neat to find out like how much of a phenomenon it was, and you go to conventions and things like that, and people are really into whatever work you're working on versus other work that, might be continuing job and whatever else, but just doesn't have the same level of fan recognition, I suppose. I don't really think about it as being a surprise or anything like that. It was just, it's neat and it's an honor to have been part of such a thing. Since I don't do the planning or the marketing or any of that kind of stuff, I don't know how luck of the draw that sort of thing was as far as it hitting versus something else not hitting or whatever. I do know that in the modern landscape, I think the Pokemon stuff hit a little bit before the Dragon Ball stuff by a couple of years. So there was at least that sort of like, the gates have been opened up a little bit for this sort of entertainment and this sort of animation in the West. So that helped out, I'm sure. But yeah, it's hard for me as someone, because I was in my 20s when I booked the Roshi stuff. It's hard for me to look at that and try to remember the level of surprise or whatever when it had already been some sort of notoriety overseas. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's already popular somewhere and we're helping a new audience reach it. So it wasn't like a gamble like with like if you're filming a new pilot for the WB or something like that, and you don't know whether anyone's going to pick it up, and you don't know if it's going to make it past episode 2 of being on the air or whatever, like that's a different sort of format, where you're really rolling the dice on some sort of new material. This we at least had the mindset and the knowledge of someone else already really likes it on the other side of the planet. So let's just try to, make sure that we do it right.
Going off,
Go ahead.
going off that theme of somebody else already liking it, you've directed a couple episodes of Dragon Ball Z, right?
Yeah, I directed the back half of the original Dragon Ball series, and I've directed some Z off and on here and there, and I wrote some of the scripts for the uncut Z stuff whenever it started to be done, completely uncut, and there weren't anybody with, they're safe, they're in parachutes, or, nobody dies or anything like that, so.
What's the process like of directing something that kind of already exists in a different form?
Well, when I'm doing voice direction, I take lots of things into account. Like when I was talking about the research for shows, of getting ready of, what things do I study or how do I prep up. I keep that stuff in mind when I'm going through and directing the actors. Who are they in this story? Where does their character's voice kind of sit? What's the par? What's the normal you and I speaking voice right now? Like where does that sit within how loud or how soft or how big or how high in their voice they get? I keep in mind the emotional context. I listen to what the Seiyu, the Japanese voice actor, what they're doing. What does the character look like on screen? Is their mouth like half the screen, or is it barely moving, or any of these sorts of things? Like you can take all of that into context, and I inform the actor who's only filling in their character's stuff. We're not watching it from beginning to end together. We're just skipping through to where their lines are and recording it. I might show them a scene or something, or show them, we're for sure going to watch what they're going to record just before we record it. But that might be the first and only time they ever hear it in another language. It is up to me to say everything that's happened in between. Like, since your last line happened, this has happened, and this has happened, and this has happened, and now you're in this setting, you guys have gone to this field, and you're reassessing everything, you're battle worn, this character has died in battle, and this is the exchange that's going on. So now they have like some sort of context of like, oh, okay, we're defeated, we're tired, we have this going on, and then we play what happened in Japanese, like, okay, like they're out of breath, they've been running and all that sort of stuff, and they can take that into context. And luckily, you know, a huge portion of the actors I work with have the acting training, have the experience, have all of that, and then I just either go, cool, that was great, or do it a little bit different this way here and there. The tricky thing with recording the ADR stuff is that because we're recording one person at a time, there are many, many ways that you could look at a line and decide how to say it, and they're all correct. But what I need is a specific thing to happen to where a conversation that I'm trying to make happen through a bunch of different people who aren't in the room at the same time sound like they are all in the room at the same time, and they are all in this environment, and they are in this world. So if you inflect the wrong word, or if one person is a bit louder than everyone else around them, or someone else is not on the mic at the same distance, it sounds like you're just piece parting audio files together instead of there being a world where everyone is animated and they have these problems and that it's a real situation that's going on. So that's what the direction aspect of it holds into account, is I have to map out the conversation and make sure that it sounds realistic and that you know, it honors the material of what's already there in another language. Questions?
Depending on the material, how long does the recording process usually take?
For a movie, it depends. It depends on how chatty Cathy they are in the movie. Some movies, there's a whole lot of like landscape shots and people just like, huh, or like they just don't say much. That doesn't take long.
Okay.
If it's something where it's like information, fight, that takes a while because you got to record all those individual things. The Evangelion movies take a long time. For instance, I would say each one of those takes like a month to record, maybe a little bit longer, because not only do you have all the lead characters, you have all of those side characters running around like, ah, you know, like, you know, Ava is attacking. Ava wouldn't attack, you know, and the angels are attacking. And Ava fights back. You got that, but you also have all of the, like in the nerve compound, the central control, you have all of those people giving information in the background, like, you know, the truck is you know, it's delivering this, you know, section 18, we have this, we have to record all that environment stuff, so it sounds like it's this busy complex, and then layer and layer and layer and layer and layer on top of that, on top of everything else that's going on. So those take forever. And then other things just have their own unique challenges, like Wolf Children, as a movie by Mamoru Hosoda that I worked on. There are basically 3 main characters, and 2 of the main characters go through different ages, where it's enough of a age change to where I would have to have little squatty body versions of the characters, and then like toddler, 12-year-old, teenager type versions of the characters. And then have the mother start off at one age and then go through what would be like a period of 15-ish years of raising these children and what would happen to her voice. Plus the material is really emotional and intimate and whatever else, and the care that goes into that versus, he went that way, is different. You know, it just takes a lot longer to get that just right than it is like a loud action show.
Okay.
All things being equal, if we're just working on one episode of anime, and we already have it cast and everyone knows what they sound like, and it's just a typical recording speed, it would take somewhere between like 17 or 18 and 25 to 27 hours to record it. You know, no holes in the schedule, everyone comes in, nobody's sick, you know, no one's difficult to book, and just get it done. About that long, like, you know, an average of just around 20-ish hours, maybe a little bit more. And since the recording work week is anywhere from 35 to 40 hours a week, that means that we can record, close to 2 episodes a week if we just never stopped.
Okay.
And if it's something super quiet, like there was a show about 10 or 15 years ago called Noir that my friend Monica was in, where no one ever talks, you could probably do 3 or 4 episodes of that a week if you just had everybody ready to go. Because that's a lot of people staring at each other and going, yeah. Yes, sir.
Are you responsible for the whole audio output of the show then, that we hear? The special effects, the sword?
The music and all that stuff. For most things, the music and the sound effects are provided to us by the original animation team. So the Japanese producers provide us with those sorts of things. In the rare instance of me getting to work on something prelay, where we're doing it ourselves for the first time, we have some sort of say-so in that. There was a movie that I directed the voice work on that was a tie-in with Dragon Age. I think it was called Dawn of the Seeker. It was like, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. We worked with the Japanese producers and said, we want this and we want that and whatever else. And if it came down to it, they sent us everything we had and we wanted to add things here or there, then we got to play around with the Foley. Sword clashing, or suits of armor, or people wearing armor. If they walk by something, have a nice brick and some metal, where it sounds like they have slid by a castle wall or something, we get to embellish and add those things here and there. Depending on the materials in the soundtrack, most of the time here in the States, if you're buying a home version of something, DVD, Blu-ray, some sort of download, it's in 5.1, which means that there's a subwoofer signal, there's a center dialogue signal, there's a left and right front and a left and right back. And you can expand that further with like 7.1, 7.2, all these sorts of different setups, but 5.1's kind of like if you have a home system, you at least have this sort of setup. Sometimes in Japan, shows aren't made that way, like they're only made in stereo. So we would have to find some way to build a 5.1 from that, like copy the low signatures that they have and embellish it where it will make the subwoofer go off. Find an environment, like if they're outside and the wind's blowing, find a nice little track of that in what they already have that exists, copy it, throw it in the back speakers so that you're in some sort of like, you're in a field, you have wind blowing or whatever. That way we're only embellishing what already exists and not creating things from the ground up. These are things that the original production team approved of and already put into their animation, into their sound effects. So it's not like we're, going to some sort of sound bank or something and just adding on top of it. We're enhancing what they already have with their own materials. All the English dialogue would be my responsibility, my recording. And then the way that it turns out in English is the responsibility of me working with a mixer. We have several awesome mix guys that go through and balance out how much music, how much dialogue, how much sound effect, how much sound effects, what sort of filters are used. Like if someone's in, a giant robot suit, what does that sound like in this particular environment? If someone's a ghost or we're dealing with monsters, what do they sound like? What do you do to the voices to make that sound even creepier or weirder or whatever? If there's a younger version of a character, but it's only a little bit younger, how much voice pitch and how much rolling off of the bottom end of their voice do you do to make them sound like a slightly younger person with smaller chest cavity and smaller lungs? If there's an airplane flying by and drops a bomb in the middle of something, where is it on screen? Can we start it in this speaker and then the subwoofer goes off and then it finishes off in this speaker and then the bomb hits and it's in the middle? Do we have that much, say-so over how these sound effects turn out? I work with the mix guy to make all of those things happen, and they're great. The ones that we work with, there's a guy I work with a lot who's named Nathaniel Harrison, who's kind of in charge of the department. And luckily I get to work with him on several big projects like Evangelion and the host of the movies and stuff like that. He's fantastic at that kind of work, and he really helps bring the vision of the original director plus whatever I have input for the English track to life.
I think we we have time for about one more question, so
Okay.
if anyone would like to.
Mhm.
Yeah, have you ever gotten pretty far along in the process and just not liked what you had created and had to scrap it and start over?
Not to where I've gotten really far in the process. Every so often, depending on what show it is and what sort of time frame I have or whatever else, I will hire certain people like as a preliminary cast. Like, let's say there's someone who had a really strong audition, has some acting background and whatever else, but I have never ever worked with them before, so I don't know what they are like, you know, to take direction. I don't know what they're like as a human being, like is this a flaky person who's going to not show up when I book them? All these sorts of things where I will let them or their agent or whoever know, I want to hire you for like a 2-hour audition or a 4-hour audition, something like that. So they come in, I see if they can do this type of work, if they haven't ever done it before. I see if they can take direction. I see how much stamina they have, like can you scream, can you do this, can you do that? And also, beyond that, what do you sound like with the other people around you? Like you're in an ensemble. Do you sound like you fit in this ensemble? Do you sound super quirky to the point where you don't fit in with everybody else? Do you sound too much like this supporting character who I want to have this actor in the supporting character? Do you sound too much like him? That sort of stuff, where that's in the beginning, and I will sort that sort of stuff out. Sometimes I've had to go thank you, and here's your money for the audition. I'm going to have to go with somebody else. But frequently I let them know that, where they're not just like, I wonder if I'm going to get called in to do more, because I don't like doing that to anybody. I will just let them know as soon as I can. Hey, that was great, but it didn't work out this time. Or, you were great, but it just sounds too much like this thing. I'll keep you in mind for other things. It's usually not like, I made a mistake and you're a talentless hack and you should never work again. Normally it's just like, luck of the draw, this didn't work out this time. But I haven't had it where I'm like way into the process and have had to change anything. The only unfortunate times that has ever happened would be the couple of instances where the actor passed away and I would have to replace them in some capacity. If the show is already out there and already has volumes and volumes and volumes of stuff released, we're not going to pull it back and record it with a new person and put it back out there for consistency purposes. One, that's expensive, and two, that kind of dishonors the work that was already done. It's not like the person was bad. They're just not in this plane of existence anymore. But that's happened from time to time with long-running shows like One Piece and Dragon Ball and things like that, where, unfortunately we're all mortal, and at some point we're all going to have that happen to us. So it just happened to happen while we're in production. So.
Well, I think we're
on that happy
out
note.
of time. Now that we've ended so happily. But thank you all for coming out and having a wonderful Q&A with Mike. And thank you to Mike for being here with us.
Cool. Thank you guys for coming. Greg Sipes, I believe, is in here next for an hour. I'm going to grab a little lunch, but if you wanted to swing by my table and get something signed or talk to me further, more questions or whatever, I'll be back down in the room doing stuff probably about 1:45 or 2 o'clock.
All right.
Thank you.